Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to our ugly mugs. Those of you might be listening to In the Abyss on Spotify and Apple and all that. We are breaking out and into your homes in a much more visual way. Why are we doing that?
Why? I don't know, really. It's just fun, isn't it? It's just a little bit extra. We thought we had the idea of just doing a few little short clips rather than the long form podcast. We thought another good way just to kind of, put stuff out there is to just do shorter clips, about some little things that come to our minds.
We want to celebrate, don't we? That's what we want to do, wherever it may be. And the audio podcast we do we do have a bit of a grumble and a bit of a moan, but this is more about just celebrating some things that we think are really cool, and whether it's metal, hard rock, whatever it may be. So we thought we'd kick off by doing something we haven't done on the podcast yet, which is 3 album runs.
3 album runs. Bands that have just done a run of 3 absolute classics.
A fucking hat trick of just completely nailed it. We could talk about many, many bands that have managed that, your Metallicas, your Maidens, all that kind of thing. So we probably will talk about those at some point. But to start with, we thought, I've been banging on about this 3 album run for quite a long time.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily think the band get the credit they deserve. So what's in the bag?
Should we have a look?
Go on. What's in the bag?
What's in the bag? Right, so we got our In the Abyss record bag here, sponsored by Black City Records. We're going to talk about this band.
Oh, a bit of a shine. There you go. Now you can see it.
Go.
The Cult.
The Cult.
So 985, Love. 987, Electric. 989, Sonic Temple. A great time for heavy music anyway, but it's almost like these get forgotten. Well, maybe not forgotten as such, that might be a bit harsh, mightn't it? But they don't get talked about often enough.
I think they're one of those bands that never really kind of reached the potential that they had. I think by the time, we talk about Sonic Temple, definitely, but around that time, I think they could have, if things had been differently, they could have springboarded up to your Def Leppards, White Snakes, kind of real huge rock bands. I think around that time, they went through a lot of lineup changes, which I think knocked them a bit. I think it was what followed this album run is maybe a period of them trying to refine their feet and find their sound again and just kind of get things going on. But, before that, I think we had a period where you've really got a band who are showing that development, that kind of, finding a sound, creating a sound, coming into their own, discovering what they could do. And it really plays out across all 3 albums. And
there's a shift between every album as well, isn't there, as they develop in sound? Because, if you don't know, the Cult started out as Death Cult and then Southern Death Cult, and it was very post-punk, quite stripped back and raw. And Love was the first kind of hint of it going to another level, wasn't it? They dropped the Southern Death, the Death, just became the Cult. And while it's still very much got both feet in post-punk and goth, the hard rock is starting to come through a lot more. So you can see where they shifted and where they want to go in the future. And, Love was the first step for that.
Yeah, and I think one thing they had really early on, which is demonstrated, is songs and choruses, tracks like Rain, of course, She Sells Sanctuary, huge, massive songs. The songwriting was there from the start. And I think, as a young band as they were then, they had the world at their feet, when you've got that going on quite naturally.
Yeah.
And it just developed, they just went from strength to strength from that point on. I wasn't really aware of them before, Love, as a kind of more of a gothic band. I didn't really know them. I still don't actually know.
They've been doing some shows recently as well, haven't they? They've gone out and done that whole, it was the 83-23 thing where it was going all the way back to 1983, Death Cult, Southern Death Cult, and they were playing those songs. But they're great albums, the Death Cult and Southern Death Cult, but I think this is where the Cult became the Cult. And for me, Love especially is some of the best songwriting the 80s gave us. We can all talk about your biggest bands in that period. Songs like Rain, Revolution, obviously She Sells Sanctuary. Try saying that when you're pissed. on the seashore.
Exactly.
just magnificent songwriting. And one thing we always talk about on our podcast is you've got to have the fucking songs.
Yeah.
You know, you can produce great albums, but if you've got no hooks and no songs, you got fuck all really. And the Cult have this just in absolute droves. Then we need to talk about Ian Astbury's voice.
He's got an incredible voice.
Yeah.
Again, that's, you know, it's one of the things that I think separates the world-class bands from, you know, from the rest, really. Natural charisma, you know, he's got such a rich tone to his voice. And for me, it's like, you know, English bands tend to sound just that, really, kind of very English. And I kind of, in my head, I think of that as being quite a sort of a small, contained sound. Whereas I think on this album specifically, you know, the Cult sounded like they could take on the world. They sounded bigger than where they came from. And I think that's really important in terms of what they then went on to do, you know, after this, and kind of where they went with it and the success they had.
They basically took a bit of spit and goth boot polish to an already sort of evolving sound, and love was the result. So, yeah, while that's the first step, it probably wasn't. They were never going to take over the world with just that sound alone. It had to develop, isn't it? So 2 years later, Electric comes along.
Well, exactly. Let's have a look at Electric. And I see, one thing I wanted to talk about was it's a really. I don't think you get this anymore, where bands. You see that development. I think the expectation now is bands come out, and if they're not a success straight away, that's it. They're kind of, you know, they're dropped by the label, or that, you know, the investment goes or whatever. I think in the 80s and even going into the 90s, you would see bands kind of start out, find their feet, take a few different turns, you know, really experiment.
They were given the time to do it.
They were given the time to do it, you know. And I think on Electric, what we hear is the band bringing in, so that I think they had the songs. Now, interestingly to me, Electric is kind of less heavy on like the choruses and the songwriting. This is where they brought in the swagger and that real kind of
the rock star,
you know, the gritty rock stuff.
Produced by Rick Rubin as well, which I wasn't actually aware of until quite recently, that's terrible.
It is. It's interesting. I think, as far as I'm aware, I think it's the only time they work with Rick Rubin.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and I think it gives this album a really unique sound. And like we were talking yesterday, and I listening to Electric, Rick Rubin has a really dry production sound. Like everything is just pared back to the basics. You know, it's the room, it's the instruments. He doesn't go all in for you know, effects and ambience and reverbs and all the special magic fairy dust that the studio brings so much. And interestingly, Rick had worked on another album around this time as well, which was Rain in Blood, Slayer's Rain in Blood.
Oh,
yeah, you know, exactly that.
All that.
And it's funny because I listened to Electric, and I can hear the lineage to Rain in Blood. They've got really similar sound in the way they just sonically, like the drum kit is you know, sounds quite dry and boxy. It's just the amps, the room, and the musicians.
Yeah.
And what they achieve on Electric, I think, is an album it has shades of AC/DC going on. It's a very, I can see why at this point the Americans were starting to listen, because this is an album to play like in your truck, you know, on a long drive.
In your Ford F-150.
I mean, it just is. It's like windows wound down, you know, collecting flies on your forearm as you're driving, you know, driving across states and things like that.
Well, but the American blues sound started to come through on this album.
Exactly, right.
You know?
Yeah, so that's all coming into it. And I think it really is the marriage of those two things. So we had the sort of exquisite songwriting on Love, you know, and the rock attitude on Electric. It was the marriage of those two things coming together that brought us to Sonic Temple, which, you know, we feel is the third absolute banger in a 3-album run of bangers.
It's a left foot, right foot header, fucking perfect hat trick, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, this was probably my stepping on point with the Cult. I think
it would have been for a lot of people, I think.
The first Cult songs I heard came from Sonic Temple. And I mean, to this day, it's the one that. I mean, Sweet Soul Sister for me.
The intro to that is like it kind of personifies stadium rock, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like it just makes you just want to kind of bellow it out, and that's that. This is the development we were talking about. They've gone from the post-punk, the goth, through to love, through to electric, and now they are full on arena rock. And
absolutely,
even the cover kind of gives it away.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, is that like does anything say arena rock more than
exactly
Billy Duffy there?
And when you look at Billy Duffy the years gone by, it is a complete transformation.
Yeah,
but it was a natural transformation. It's not like they've gone, just turn a switch, fuck it, what should we do this time? We'll do a stadium rock album.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
It feels like it was a natural progression.
It's a complete natural progression. And as I said, songs on this, Sweet Soul Sister, I get goosebumps, when that song comes to this day. It does what stadium rock is supposed to do, which is sound completely larger than life, which to my ears is so different from what they were doing on electric. But they've brought that rock attitude with them.
And Bob Rock.
Yeah, and we get
with a name like Rock, how bad can he be?
Exactly.
That's for you, Padre. But the production is right. Again, like it was with Rick Rubin, the production fits with the music they're playing. This is a stadium rock album. It's a stadium rock production.
Yeah.
None of it sort of feels out of place, does it?
Not at all. And they brought back the choruses as well. I mean, I'm just looking down the track list. I mean, Sun King, Firewoman, Ciao Baby.
Right, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Edie, Ciao Baby, before you go on, I think, in my personal opinion, is one of the greatest ballads ever written. And you can quote me on that. I genuinely, again, like Sweet Soul Sister, it just makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up.
There you go.
It's just an incredible song.
Yeah.
Incredible song.
So...
just a magnificent band.
Just a magnificent band. I'm just thinking, did they misstep at all on any of these? I do want to kind of highlight on electric the cover, the Born to Be Wild.
See, I've got it's weird, but they cultify it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when you first hear it, you wouldn't clock straight away that it's Born to Be Wild,
right?
Yeah, but once it obviously kicks in and you get the chorus and whatnot, it is. But I don't know. I think they do a good job of it.
Right? Yeah.
You're obviously going to disagree, but
it's a bit jarring for me. For me, the definitive version of Born to Be Wild is Ozzy Osbourne and Miss Piggy. Which it's.
I could see you actually believing that.
It's worth a listen, but it makes me laugh. But it does exist. Get out there and have a look. Born to Be Wild, Miss Piggy. It's a duet, Ozzy Osbourne and Miss Piggy. But I think that's the only. It's a bit like when Judas Priest covered Johnny Be Good. I think I'm hot and cold.
As bad as that?
It's like I'm hot and cold with it. Sometimes I listen to it and it's just great because I just love the fact that it's like, it's a bit of a cheesy song and they're going balls to the wall with it. Fair enough. So sometimes I love it, sometimes less so. But you know what? It's not enough to knock what I think we wanted to talk about, which is the fact the Cult, great band, well worth. If you listen to anything they've done, these 3 albums, you can't go wrong. Great starting point. Actually, the one further listening, I think it's worth mentioning Ceremony, which is the album that came out next, which for me was the soundtrack to my. Just kind of being young. It was always my getting ready to go out album. I put Ceremony on.
Did you sing it into your hairbrush?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
or your beard brush.
There was a bit of that going on. I didn't have a beard like this. Believe it or not, when I was 15 years old, this was all on top of my head. But that's another great album. It's a bit darker, I think, in tone.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where, they kind of went off into not obscurity, but they kind of
they did a bit later in the 90s, didn't they? They came back with Beyond Good and Evil.
Yeah, and that was the other one I wanted to mention. Beyond Good and Evil,
heavy album.
It's a heavy album, but again, a great marriage of great songwriting, big choruses, but there's a bit more weight to it.
Yeah,
that's well worth a listen. But you can pretty much cherry pick anything they've done and find something worth listening to. But in terms of seeing a band grow and develop and really sort of, grow into what they became, these 3 albums, we've got Love, we've got Electric, and we've got Sonic Temple. Fucking great.
Fucking bangers. And before we go, I think we need to just a proper shout out to Billy Duffy as a proper bona fide guitar hero. You know, especially on Electric and Sonic Temple, he really came to life. Some of the fucking soloing on Aphrodisiac Jacket and Love Removal Machine in particular, the soloing is just fucking unreal.
Yeah.
You know, again, I don't think he gets talked about enough when you talk about your guitar greats.
That's a fair point, actually.
Those within the know probably do, but
yeah,
I think, when people talk about Knopfler and fucking people like that,
Slash and other, you know, people that came from that era.
Yeah. People don't mention Billy Duffy.
They don't. And in terms of, you know, sort of pound for pound, riff for riff, you know, he's contributed a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, fair play to him. I'll raise a toast. What are you raising? We should probably mention our sponsor.
If you can see that.
Who, you know, until recently, you might have noticed on the podcast that the Radio City Beer Works logo on the on our webpage. But what we got here, Never Means Maybe, Inhale the Chaos.
So Never Means Maybe are a local band. So this, and obviously this one, All Father, salute to All Father. Salute to the cult first.
So Billy Duffy, cheers for your contribution to rock and roll music.
Absolutely. So Radio City Beer Works, you can buy the beer online. It's fucking great beer. I can particularly recommend 2112. It's probably the first and only time we'll get anywhere near talking about Rush on this, but you've got it anyway.
2112 gets me into a lot of trouble.
Don't take it lightly. Do not take it lightly, but it's honestly one of the finest beers I've ever drank. So, and I'm not an IPA drinker, so for me to say that is pretty special. rcbw.shop. You can order online all over the country, and if you're local to Chelmsford, you'll get, I think, like, you know, a proper local personal delivery kind of thing. So go and check that out. And I think last thing, comments below. Want to hear what people think about the cult?
Yeah.
Are we right? Do people disagree?
Yeah.
Have they got better albums?
What would you say? And also, are there other bands you want to hear a 3-album run? Who would be your 3-album run?
Rush. No, stop you there.
I thought we weren't going to talk about Rush. We can talk about Rush. We can talk about Rush, can't we? I mean, not now, but anyway. So comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would be your 3-album run? Let us know. And if we haven't heard them, we'll check them out. Otherwise, we're happy to talk about whoever.
Do all the usual, please. Like, subscribe. You know, we see if this works. If you enjoy it, let us know. If you don't, let us know. You know, all feedback is welcome. You can call me whatever you want. I don't mind. That's probably dangerous, isn't it?
Well, see how it goes. You might get lost. Come to you're a very handsome man.
Well, if anyone says that, I'm humbled. But hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be doing these regularly, so there will be more, and we'll be doing some different stuff, some album reviews, probably some gig reviews, and probably then just some ranting and some celebrating and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
everything for the riff, basically. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.